This is Jonathan Agar here for Pro Boxing Fans, joined by Adam Booth here at the first press conference for Troy Williamson against Josh Kelly on December 2nd. Adam, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. So, obviously this fight was ordered by the British board for the British title. Why did this fight make sense though to take? Because, you know, we often see, or we have seen, fights being ordered and fighters not taking it. So why did this one make sense?
Because it's a competitive fight that we believe is at the right time for Josh, that propels him to fulfilling his potential as a fighter, and it was a no-brainer.
When Josh decided to move up to 154, was Troy Williamson someone on the radar, would you say?
Everyone at 154 is on your radar. Once you go into a division, everyone's on your radar, and then when you're looking at, okay, well, realistically, who's in the short-term picture, Troy Williamson was already one of the fighters that we were looking at, along with maybe two or three others. And when the board called me and said, we're thinking of putting this one out, would you take it? We don't want to waste our time. I said, yes, we will. Phone Josh, phone him straight back, they put it out.
Stylistically, how similar or different would you say this is to the David Avanesian fight?
No, it's a different fight. Troy's bigger, longer arms, has different strengths and different weaknesses to Avanesian. Everybody already knows that if you stand off and try and box with Josh Kelly, you're going to get your head picked off and embarrassed. So we know that anyone now fighting Josh is going to believe that all they have to do is apply pressure and Josh will fade halfway through the fight. We know that that's what everyone's looking at, but we also know what Josh can do when he's right physically and mentally, and we are now in a position where we're sitting comfortable and confident, having gone through the dark days of what he's had to go through, to realise, yeah, he's now actually the man that can go and fulfil his potential.
Just touching on that sort of fulfilling potential line, Troy suggested in the press conference that he hasn't fulfilled his potential. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. There's nothing Troy said that wasn't true. He hasn't. He did get catapulted up very quickly because our belief was in his ability and that he was going to become a Sky box office feature. But then what happened was the things that have nothing to do with fighting or boxing started to rear their head, and it needed the pressure cooker environment of a European title fight against a fellow like David Avanesian to show what actually was already showing its face like 18 months before. And so Josh had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of work to create the understanding and a different mental fortitude. And we say training's 90% physical, fighting's 90% mental, and that's absolutely true. And what I'm seeing now is the mentality of Josh being more suited to the spotlights now, and being able to be himself and unaffected by things that have gone on in the past.
That said, obviously, Josh has been open about his mental health struggles going into the Avanesian fight. Was it, in some ways, a gamble taking the fight, or do you look at it as the fact that he's got through that fight and he thought, even though he was going through that, is a good experience for him overall?
Well, I'm a firm believer that you judge something when it's all said and done at the end of the career, not while it's on the journey. Look at David Haye losing to Carl Thompson in his 10th or 11th fight. Who would have thought at that moment in time, when I threw the towel in the 5th round, that David would go on and become unified cruiserweight champion and world heavyweight champion? Something had to happen to force the change in the man so that he could become what he wants to be, and that's exactly what's happened here with Josh.
Are there any similarities between Josh and David in that sense, how they maybe approached the fight or the pressure they were under going into fights? Do you see any?
Huge similarities, because it was the same venue. They'd both had the same amount of fights. They were both fighting a former world champion who was known to be tough with a decent punch. There were so many strange similarities, and that I threw the towel in on both occasions. But that's where the similarities stop, and because how they resolve those elements that are missing for the pair of them are completely different.
In boxing, obviously, fans judge, you're only as good as your last fight, they always say, but does this give Josh the opportunity to send a statement out there to people who have been doubting him?
Absolutely. Like, Troy's on, he's been on fire recently. His win against Ted Cheeseman was an incredible performance and fight. So he's proven what he is as a fighter. And beating him will give Josh the springboard to the next level, which it deserves, to his ultimate goal of being the best in the world.
Most people who predict this fight would say that if Williamson wins this, it's by stoppage. If Kelly wins this, it's by points. Do you agree?
No, I absolutely don't.
What would you say to that?
That I don't agree.
In terms of sort of the outcome?
If you think that Josh doesn't have the ability to stop Troy Williamson, that's a big mistake. We're not relying on that. We are preparing for 12 rounds. I've seen Troy get hurt. I've seen Troy get dropped. But I've seen how emotionally he doesn't panic when he is hurt and when he is dropped. And so if you hurt someone like that or you drop someone like that, you've got to make sure that you forget about whether they can or can't cope with it and just keep doing your job. And that's a test that Troy poses, because I've seen him get hurt and he doesn't panic. But that doesn't mean that Josh can't stop him.
Wait and see on December 2nd. Just a few things whilst I've got you here, Adam, to get through. Announced the next day Fury against Derek Chisora. What do you think? Obviously, Fury's won convincingly twice before. What can Derek do, if anything, different in this fight?
Well, with Derek, it all depends on which Derek's in the ring. He can blow so hot and cold. Who would have thought that he would have, stressed Vitaly Klitschko for 12 rounds when he did? And look at the experience Derek's got. If Derek is in shape and in the right mindset on fight night, then I think he can pose a genuine challenge to Fury. I was surprised when people scoffed at the fight. I think the scoffing was based on the disappointment that it wasn't AJ, coupled with the fact that Tyson's already beaten him twice before. But Derek Chisora is a Jekyll and Hyde character, and like I say, don't sleep on it, because it could be a bit more entertaining than people think it is, certainly based on what they are as fighters, and secondly, what they are as characters as well.
We saw Deontay Wilder come back with a first-round stoppage against Hellenius. People obviously bringing up the AJ fight again. If that fight was to happen, how would you see it going? AJ against Wilder?
Quickly. Very quickly. I don't see it going past 3 rounds.
On AJ, Frank Warren said that he believes that Joyce and Dubois could both knock out Joshua right now. Obviously, he promotes both, but what would you say about those two matchups?
Any chance you have of avoiding Joyce, avoid him. Joyce is a nightmare for absolutely any heavyweight. If you can't put him on the floor and nail him to the canvas, you're in for a hard night. I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter if it's Tyson, Deontay, AJ. Joyce is the nightmare for everyone. He's almost like the British version of a George Foreman to some extent. Dubois, I think he's still probably gaining his confidence after the Joe loss. I don't think Dubois is ready yet to step up to that level. I think he needs to. He's still young, right? Dubois is still really young, so he can take his time a little bit. No one needs Joyce.
And just finally, you're obviously one of the most highly respected trainers in the UK, if not the world. Who would you say sort of trainers in the UK or in the world you sort of look at, and I don't know, I wouldn't say take tips, but you look at them and say they're great coaches or have great potential coming through?
No, I try not to, having been, when I first started being a coach, being one that people wanted to criticise and then people wanted to laud and then criticise. I realised it doesn't matter. Like unless you spend time in the gym with the person, working with them, listening to them, understanding their philosophy, you can't make an assessment. So I don't estimate under or over. I just take things as I see them.
Adam Booth, thanks for speaking to Pro Boxing Fans.
Nice one.